Hi, I'm Nick. Welcome to Nick's Fix. What can we learn from Perseus as Malays? For me, knowing that there's a slight bit of probability that I could be related to Perseus, the Greek hero, by ways of the Achaemenids, is too shocking to even start to digest it. And as days gone by, nothing much changed since that fateful day during the movement control order period in the pandemic of 2020. I'm still me, and credits to the slow me, I haven't made much progress to understand the significance of that so-called discovery. As I look back, I feel sort of redeemed. As shared before, I often mention that growing up, I felt certain longing and attached, certain happiness when I saw any Greek things. Perseus, he's Mycenaean, Perseid, and throughout histories and centuries later, his descendants have evolved from countless amalgams of existences, including being a part of the Achaemenids, Sassanids, Pallavas, and of course, surprisingly, even to this day to me, some parts of ancient Malay Royal Houses and existences. Whether true or not, it is a discourse spanning thousands of years. Who knows what's true? Lineages can be altered, sons and daughters can be adopted, and all these things can be claimed without much substantial proofs. As I look through all that, my resolve is clear. I need to understand why my decades of quest, at least to me, led me to Perseus. What is God and His universe is trying to tell me? Like many others who have known about his pursuits, his bravery and courage came to mind. I think Perseus is all about conquering the impossibilities. It is also about fates. Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series tells about descendants of those so-called ethereal beings as always attracting troubles, monsters, and especially monsters and mayhems. Life was not easy for them. And I can, like many others, relate to that, whether we are descendants of so-so or not. I've gone through that, when I was just going about my own life and suddenly somebody decided to make it merrier by throwing obstacles along my way just for the fun of it. I've met monsters, humans, but monsters nonetheless, evil, greedy bosses and beings who would put us and everyone else under the bus because they can, and they do that without much remorse. I also think that the Gorgon Medusa might point to something quite present, aka our economies and well-beings that are held captive by systems and people behind them that are hell-bent in making us live in perpetual misery, where hard works does not often equals to happiness, but dash hopes and dreams. Life is not fair, but I think there's something that has got to be done about it. Take Perseus. To protect his mum, he went and gallantly said yes to capturing the head of the Gorgon Medusa, who evidently has her own sad story of why she became like that. That's about protection of someone dear, and also not about giving up. Because even then, everybody knew that capturing Medusa's head, that's impossible with a capital I. And then there's Andromeda, tied to a big rock, ready to be big meal of the day for a big ass squid. Either versions, Kraken or Cetus, Perseus used what he had to fight, a being that is thousandfold bigger by his lonesome self. Utter ridiculousness and idiocy. But he used the Gorgon Medusa's head, and the rest is history, or depending on what version you would like to adopt, myth or legend. I believe some legends and myths do have some real life truth in them, that something did happen along those lines in those myths and legends, but to what extent, we sure don't know. In these two feats, Perseus was seen as victorious, his undying loyalty to his lone parent, his mother, and a virgin who was impregnated unnaturally, according to the story, by an otherworldly being. Perseus' chivalry to save an innocent maiden, albeit with some boastful parents, showed almost assuredly that his fate was sealed, that he looked to win it all. Not so, not always so. He could have failed big time, and we won't know what and who the hell is Perseus. And later dynasties and royal houses will have no businesses claiming relations to him whatsoever. I guess what I can say, we can gather from all that is that we have to sacrifice bigger for something bigger in proportions, like the sanctity of his mum and the life of an innocent maiden. Parents and the founding of a loved one, our significant other, plays a big part in many, if not all, lives. It seems that this seems to be the case even thousands of years ago, and even if it is just in myths and legends. It also tells about that one can never expect what can come out from life's greatest moments of terrors and tragedies. Not foolhardily, but there's that sense of unabated courageousness in the eye of uncertainties and unknowns, something that can't be measured, something even ordinary people like you and me can relate to. In our daily lives, we often stumble upon frights, scares, and looming tragedies and dooms. It's hard to measure something that is unknown. They are not happening yet. In all these events, a little bit of mokum or courage helps. I guess life is that, about bravery. A little bit of mokum, a Korean word, a little bit of courage. That's what we need. I think all of us are destined to meet them. These untold, eventful events. The only way is to persist, persist like Perseus, in spite of all and everything, even against odds and impossibilities. There were days when I thought were too dark, not because of my own doings, but it was dark nonetheless. The holes that kicked me in, the monsters and devils that came crushing in, hurting and injuring me, leaving me breathless even when I had just barely recovered from subsequent previous attacks. I think life is about unpreparedness and facing it anyways, gallantly, courageously. And in Perseus' case, it made even the otherworldly beings took pity and sided with him. In most cases, anyways. I believe we are not alone, but I don't subscribe to those otherworldly beings as gods or someone that have utter control of my life and fates. Those are reserved to my one and true God, the all-knowing and powerful. But I know this, other beings are with us. Whether they side with us, puts their own chips on our boxes and cheer for us, or perhaps lend some assistances along the way, our thanks must still go to the one God, and that's that. No wrong in acknowledging helps from anyone really, but the problem lies in attributing. Even if they help, it doesn't mean I need to put my entire being in their whims and commands. Don't be ungrateful, but don't be a pushover too. I guess Perseus shows that grace about humans go about this other worldly beings that they encountered through the ages. Some have even attributed them as all-powerful, which they are not. Perseus doesn't worship them. He respected them as separate beings with whims and quirks of their own, but he is in charge of his own life and destiny, as a man, as a human. The story of Perseus is a story of the triumph of human hope and courage, where even other beings feels interested in. As ordinary humans, all of us face obstacles and challenges, where most of it have origins to bad human behaviors and their predilection. The recipe is to persevere and know that, against better human judgments and what the normal eye can see, that we are not alone. If we are in the sights of truth and justice, know this, that path is actually paved in blooming rose petals and smells utterly nice despite the hardships and impossibilities. Help will come in many ingenious and mysterious ways, with emphasis on the mysterious. I'm glad that in my bizarre way of thinking, that I found clues that showed that my ancestors might be linked to Perseus. It does answer some questions, but I know it may also provide the glimpses or the premise of what I and all of us should prepare ourselves up against in the future. In normal circumstances, I would not have imagined putting Perseus as that great hero to look up to, albeit knowing about his more than extraordinary feats. Now, I hold his stories closer and dearer, and perhaps say thanks to all his faith and belief in himself, in truth, and the abilities of the human species to overcome great obstacles put or thrown into their ways, big and small.